Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service.
What up, though? What? Okay. Why are you talking about me? Or are you talking about a different Globus? Because there are multiple globi in the world. That's why I can't hear myself. Ah. This is a raid, everybody lay down. 1 second to unfuck myself. There we go. Let me do the thing. What up, Red Hobbit? What up, Old Lobster? What up, Vera? What up, Alina? What up, Paradigm? Paradigm, like jumping in ahead of the reveal, but parapredict. I have Deus Ex, the Mankind one on the PS5. So we now have, like, I got a bunch of games, or I got 3 games that are within the AI cyberpunk kind of realm. So some gaming in the future. What up, Big Lou? Elder Gang. Oh yeah. That's the Globus data thing, Lobster. Yeah, that's totally where I snatched that from. Fair use. I'm claiming fair use. I did transformative content to the content, and now it's content, and it's content. I have never played a single Deus Ex game. Oh, DJ, 1 second. I got something for you. Do 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 do.
Thing is, like any other shiny new toy, AI is ultimately a mirror, and it will reflect back exactly who we are.
There you go. That's the sub alert that you were owed from yesterday. I didn't do anything to fix it, but now it works today. So there you go. So yeah, it's nice to see everybody here, and everybody's so excited, and that's good. Because this is the AI safety stuff is important stuff. And it runs the gamut from the like doomer types. Whoa, I am tilted. There we go. From the doomer types all the way to the hello Ferris. To the yes, there you go. Say hi to chat, Ferris. Say hi to Ferris, chat. From the doomer types all the way to people who don't think it's even a necessity. It's like, it's wild. It's wild. So yeah, we got a bunch to get into today. You give the man a little authority, and all of a sudden it goes right to his head. This is a raid, everybody. Lay down. Alright, so no time to lose. We might as well start getting into stuff. Alright, this first video I haven't watched barely any of anything today because I know how you feel about that stuff. So we're gonna watch stuff together. But this came out of an account that I follow on Twitter, and so there's an implied trust there. We'll see if they continue to earn it.
I mean, how would like human beings sort of experience such a super intelligent?
I mean, like in practice, what's that like? Well, unless it's limited, narrow superintelligence, I think you mostly don't get to observe it because you are dead, unfortunately.
What?
We started OpenAI 7 years ago because we felt like something really interesting was happening in AI. We wanted to help steer it in a positive direction.
OpenAI unveiled the ChatGPT.
has been in circulation for just 3 months, and already an estimated 100 million people have used it.
How many folks in the audience have used ChatGPT?
I think it's the single largest opportunity and biggest tech paradigm shift we've seen since the internet originally came out.
I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT to make money online.
Absolute best ChatGPT prompt.
It will turn your drawing into a fully functional website.
Chatbot GTP, thank you for talking to me today.
You're welcome. I'm here to help answer any questions you may have.
In 6 weeks, these guys have gone from
So appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
0 in valuation to now being a $29 billion company.
Tonight, we take you inside the headquarters of a small company in San Francisco called OpenAI, creators of ChatGPT. CEO Sam Altman is just 37.
I think people should be happy that we're a little bit scared of this. I think people should be
You're
happy.
a little bit scared.
A little bit, yeah,
You
of course.
personally.
What is your best case scenario for AI and worst case?
The bad case, and I think this is important to say, is lights out for all of us.
Listen up, this morning, a massive development on the AI front. Elon Musk and other major tech leaders calling for a pause on giant artificial intelligence experiments.
Writing bluntly in an open letter, AI systems with human competitive intelligence can pose profound risks to society and humanity.
And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
The man widely seen as the godfather of artificial intelligence has quit his job at Google, warning of the dangers of AI.
What I've been talking about mainly is what I call the existential threat, which is the chance that they get more intelligent than us and they'll take over.
No, then I heard the old dude that created AI talking about this is not safe because the AI's got their own minds. I'm like, is we in a movie right now or what?
Can we have the water, by the way, just brought here? I think we're going to need it. It's a dry mouth topic. So the original story that I heard on OpenAI when you were founded as a nonprofit, where you were there as the great sort of check on the big companies doing their unknown, possibly evil thing with AI, and you were going to build models that sort of somehow held them accountable and was capable of slowing the field down if need be. And yet what's happened, arguably, is the opposite, is that your release of ChatGPT put such shockwaves through the tech world that now Google and Meta and so forth are all scrambling to catch up.
But this isn't an arms race, it's a suicide race where everybody loses if anybody's AI goes out of control.
Do you share Geoffrey Hinton's worries?
Absolutely.
Do you believe, I'm quoting him, that it is not inconceivable that it could actually lead to the extinction of the human race?
Not only is it not inconceivable, I think it is quite likely, unfortunately, and I'm not just the only one saying this.
Overall, maybe you're getting more up to 50-50 chance of doom shortly after you have AI systems that are human level.
This is a stat that took me by surprise. 50% of AI researchers believe there's a 10% or greater chance that humans go extinct from our inability to control AI.
We have to realize what people are talking about. The destruction of the human race. The end of human civilization.
I have a dream today.
You see how it all evens out?
Who would want to continue playing with that risk? But it is happening today, and companies are continuing. There's not enough divestment, there's not enough real meaningful action by the experts to say we are going to change our behavior in the interest of protecting humanity.
It just sounds absurd that serious people like yourself, these tech people, can talk about the end of the human race. It really concentrates the mind.
So every time you release a model, every time you build such a model, you're rolling it down. Maybe this time's fine. Maybe next time's fine.
But at some point, it won't be right. It's Russian roulette.
So the risk is that ChatGPT 6 won't be written by humans. It'll be written by ChatGPT 5.5.
I've been watching lots of these kind of long-form podcasts with people like Sam Altman, who you mentioned, and then we'll continue to speak about the research they're doing after saying that it might bring about the end of humanity. Why do they carry on doing it?
Yeah, I think that's a really important... Wow.
And the investment in the creation of the foundation models is on the order of 50 million, 100 million.
We don't share, but it's much more than that.
Billions of dollars and thousands, tens of thousands of our brightest engineers and scientists are working day in, day out to create ever more powerful systems. Well, the number of people who work full-time on the alignment problem is probably less than 200 people, if I had to guess.
The alignment means making it safe, the moral alignment.
So at present, sort of 99% of the money is going into developing them and 1% is going into sort of people saying, oh, these things might be dangerous. It should be more like 50-50, I believe.
Alignment is moving like this. Capabilities are moving like this.
For the listener, capabilities are moving much faster than the alignment.
Kind of like we're rushing towards this cliff. But the closer to the cliff we get, the more scenic the views are and the more money there is there. And so we keep going. But we have to also stop at some point, right?
Given how fast things are moving and how fast you're developing this technology, how much time do we actually have? CEOs involved in artificial intelligence development meeting with President Biden and Vice President Harris in Washington. The White House said that Biden told the CEOs they need to mitigate risks posed by AI to individuals, society, and national security.
I'm skeptical, and I think many are skeptical. Maybe that's warranted because the technology just develops so quickly, and public policy takes so much longer to develop.
Just calling the private companies and say you are in charge and you have more obligation is nothing.
Especially from Microsoft and Google, the two leaders here, and OpenAI, I guess, we hear the word responsible. We're going to do this responsibly. Seems like you're not buying that. What do you think?
Well, those companies are responsible to their shareholders. They're not necessarily responsible to humanity as a whole.
It's the systemic processes that are protecting business interests over human concerns that create this pervasive environment of irresponsible technology development.
And raise your right hand. As these systems do become more capable, and I'm not sure how far away that is, but maybe not super far, I think it's important that we also spend time talking about how we're going to confront those challenges.
So that's what a large language model is. It's this giant trillion parameter circuit that's been trained to predict the next word. What goes on inside, we haven't the faintest idea.
I expect there will be times when we find something that we don't understand and we really do need to take a pause, but we don't see that yet.
We probably have more idea what's happening inside the human brain than we do about what's happening inside the large language models.
There is an aspect of this which all of us in the field call it as a black box. You don't fully understand. You can't quite tell why it said this or why it got wrong. We have some ideas.
You don't fully understand how it works, and yet you've turned it loose on society?
Just shut down all the giant training runs. They don't know what they're doing. They're not taking it seriously. There's an enormous gap between where they are now and taking it seriously. And if they were taking it seriously, they'd be like, we don't know what we're doing, we have to stop. That is what it looks like to take this seriously.
A traditional software system, programmer writes code, which solves a problem. AI is very different. AIs are not really written. They're more like grown. You have a sample of data of what you wanted to accomplish. And then you use huge supercomputers to crunch these numbers to kind of like organically almost grow a program that solves these problems. And importantly, we have no idea how these programs work internally.
Oh gosh.
They are complete black boxes. We don't understand at all how their internals work. This is an unsolved scientific problem. And we do not know how to control these things.
What a lot of safety researchers have been saying for many years is that the most dangerous things you can do with an AI is, first of all, teach it to write code, because that's the first step towards recursive self-improvement, which can take it from AGI to much higher levels.
Bard has already learned more than 20 programming languages.
Let's get ChatGPT to write some code for us.
Oops, we've done that. Another thing, high risk, is connected to the internet. Let it go to websites, download stuff on its own, talk to people.
A big part of our strategy is, while these systems are still relatively weak and deeply imperfect, to find ways to get people to have experience with them, to have contact with reality, and to figure out what we need to do to make it safer and better.
Oops, we've done that already.
That's like saying, well, the only way we can test our new medicine, the only way we can know whether it's safe or not, is to actually put it right into the water supply, give it to literally everybody as fast as possible. And then before we get the results for the last one, make an even more potent drug and put that into the water supply as well, and do this as fast as possible.
Have you seen Don't Look Up, the film?
This feels like a gigantic Don't Look Up scenario. It's a movie about like this asteroid hurtling to Earth.
Good afternoon, everybody.
There's an expert from the Machine Intelligence Research Institute who says that if there is not an indefinite pause on AI development, this is a quote, literally everyone on Earth will die. Would you agree that does not sound good?
Your delivery, Peter, is quite something. We are taking this very seriously. We put our blueprint out. It is a cohesive federal government approach to AI-related risks, as you just laid out in a very dramatic way. But clearly,
is there anything more dramatic?
I mean, you just read it.
Literally everyone on Earth will die.
Pretty dramatic. Pretty dramatic.
Isn't that an extinction level event?
Well, let's not be dramatic here. At this very moment, I say we sit tight and assess.
We are actually acting out. It's life imitating art. Humanity is doing exactly that right now, except it's an asteroid that we are building ourselves.
I feel like we're at the beginning of a disaster film where they show the news clips about when everything went.
The newscasters laughing it off.
Exactly.
Okay, well, as it's damaging, will it hit this one house in particular that's right on the coast of New Jersey? It's my ex-wife's house. I need it to be hit. Can we make that happen?
What is your best case scenario for AI and worst case? I mean, I think the best case is like so unbelievably good that it's like hard to. I think it's like hard for me to even imagine.
And when these treasures from heaven are claimed, poverty as we know it, social injustice, loss of biodiversity, all these multitudes of problems are just going to become relics of the past.
We are working to build tools that one day can help us make new discoveries and address some of humanity's biggest challenges, like climate change and curing cancer.
They found a bunch of gold and diamonds and rare shit on the comet. So they're gonna let it hit the planet to make a bunch of rich people even more disgustingly rich.
Almost nobody is talking about it.
And then you have Harry.
People are squabbling across the planet about all sorts of things which seem very minor compared to the asteroid that's about to hit us.
And one of the things that worries me most about the development of AI at this point.
So do I need to invest in the AI so I can have one with me?
We seem unable to marshal an appropriate emotional response to the dangers that lie ahead.
Right now, we're at a fork in the road. This is the most important fork that humanity has reached in its over 100,000 years on this planet. We're building effectively a new species that's smarter than us.
It's as if aliens had landed, but we didn't really take it in because they speak good English.
We think that regulatory intervention by governments will be critical to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful models. For example, the US government might consider a combination of licensing and testing requirements for development and release of AI models above a threshold of capabilities.
Humans have kind of changed the environment on Earth very significantly as a result of our intelligence relative to other species, and that's had, significant consequences for some species and for the biosphere in general. Common sense tells you that something similar might happen if we invent something more intelligent than us.
Arguably, we are on the event horizon of the black hole that is artificial superintelligence.
If we were to write a book about the folly of the history of human hubris, dealing with nukes and AI and things like that, we could easily have the last chapter in that book if we are not more careful about confident, wrong ideas.
It's possible that there's no way we will control these superintelligences and that humanity is just a passing phase in the evolution of intelligence.
Most observers and experts would say we're on this path towards superhuman intelligence and we're not prepared for success. We're investing hundreds of billions of dollars into a technology that, if eventually it succeeds, could be civilization ending, could be a huge catastrophe.
I have not met with anyone right now in this lab who says that, sure, the risk is less than 1% of blowing up the planet. It's important that people know that their lives are being risked by these very particular experiments.
Let's be clear. They're racing for their own personal gain, for their own glory, towards an existential catastrophe that no one has consented to.
We just had a little baby, and I keep asking myself, how old is he even gonna get, and I said to my wife recently, it feels a little bit like I was just diagnosed with some sort of cancer, which has some risk of dying from and some risk of surviving, except this is the kind of cancer which will kill all of humanity.
If somebody's listening to this and they're young and trying to figure out what to do with their life, what advice would you give them?
Don't expect it to be a long life. Don't put your happiness into the future. The future is probably not that long at this point, but none know the hour nor the day.
Yeah. Real quick, what up, Lordlock? What up, Kvass Residue? What up, Cauldron of Bats? Smoke no fucking weed, kids. Apologies to anyone who has strong opinions regarding playing other people's videos on your Twitch stream. I didn't feel that there was a place to pause for commentary without disrupting the flow of the content. And though it was portrayed in a very, dramatic manner with dramatic music, I don't have a whole lot of notes on arguing with the positions that are taken here. You know what I mean? What up, Conscious Canuck? People keep talking about AI like it's a strategic nuclear weapon when we have been surrounded by rudimentary AIs and a lot of devices we already use. The development of AIs, even AGIs, does not necessarily mean we need or must pursue the observer singularity. We just need to stop putting the proverbial gun in the hands of the proverbial toddler and turning them loose. That is also very fair. Yeah, and then Lordlock is Lordlocking in the chat. So yeah, their systems are not fundamentally set up to address the problems that we're facing. And the internal dynamics of the system push a go fast, go hard dynamic, while the systems that are designed to slow down the go fast, go hard dynamic are currently incapable of doing so. And also, people would reject that activity if we tried to do it. there are fundamental concepts of freedom and liberty that many people are adamant to protect, with different definitions of both freedom and liberty. Our capitalist model is not too distant, if distant at all, from laissez-faire capitalism. And the idea of interrupting the invisible hand of the market is anathema to a lot of people who, are in a position to actually do something about this. The other challenge that we run into on a fundamental level is that we have a world filled with different governments that are competing with each other. And in addition to all the different tensions and territorial squabbles, there's currently a war on. So it makes it very challenging to shift the paradigm to a model where we are working together. And without working together, then it just shifts the issue to another place, right? Like, one of the issues that came up during the pause letter was how the time frame of the 6 months was allegedly established because that would give enough time for other American companies to work on their AIs and the American companies that were farthest ahead in AI to work on some of their safety and alignment issues, while at the same time not slowing them down so much that the Chinese could catch up. And again, this just indicates how people are not even fully cognizant of what the problem actually looks like. Right? This is like, you know how much I hate metaphors, but like, the nuclear bombs are falling and you want to try and figure out where we should go to lunch. Can't we just convince our governments to compete for the most efficient closed-circuit economy? Can we convince our governments of anything? I'd love to have AIs monitoring and optimizing growth cycles of food. 100%. This is the thing, is like, I am on board with, with the positive vision of the future that AI can bring to us, right? We talked before about the CyberSyn project in Chile and Amazon and Walmart's distribution system by algorithm and full automation of all the work that goes into, for instance, food, growing, harvesting, and distributing. Like, all these are right on the other side. And I would really, 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 many reallys, all the reallys, really times 10 to the 34th power, like to get there. That is a problem, yes. as Max Tegmark indicated, he was the one talking about connecting the AI to the internet. You're fine. The AI to the internet, or giving it, the ability to code. That's Max. And like, we're just going to go ahead and do these things that are, from a rational standpoint regarding AI, are just, I guess the nicest way I could say it is that they're contraindicated, right? Why under what rational dynamic do you put the artificial intelligence, even just an aspect of it, right? Like, I understand that there are varying levels of like intelligence when we're talking about artificial intelligence, and the machine learning and the deep learning, all the things. But they are programs. Your computer that you're sitting at now is a bunch of different programs. Right now, I have open 6 different programs that are all running at the same time, that are interacting with each other in order to present this information to you. That is as difficult as it would be to get these different aspects of AI to interlace with each other. It's just software. And if the software is hardware agnostic, then it's even more so. Our brains are running a bunch of different programs. Absolutely. Like that. So why does it make sense to anyone to teach any aspect of the AI to kill humans? Right? Like, the entire province of AI safety is based on exactly the opposite of that, right? You are attempting to align the AI with human values so that it doesn't wipe us out, and you are literally teaching it to kill people. So yeah. Well, that was a hell of a way to start the show. Is a societal level, humans killing humans is one of our favorite pastimes. Yeah, and like, we're doing multiple things that don't work well with each other, and that is one of them.
Is there anything that makes humans?
Let's hear from David Shapiro. I introduced you to David on Saturday. David actually has a thing that he's working on called the Gato framework, which has to do with like an international AI alignment movement. And in the video that I was watching, this is a better Shapiro. In this video, he was talking about, different people, like, we need engineers, and we need programmers, and we need this, and we need entrepreneurs, and we need all the things. And I was like, oh, well, and then he said that, if you're a content creator or an influencer, and I am a content creator, so I submitted my application to participate in the Gato framework, and we'll see what, if anything, comes of that. But, I'm at least going to do my part what little part I can. But this is David talking about AI alignment, safety, and the future of humanity. And again, for all my lefties in the audience, take off your Ushankas for a minute, because these are, whether we like it or not, these are the people who are influencing the way things go as it exists right now. Is why I keep telling you to get your thoughts into the data set, to use this stuff so that those of the left lean can have more influence over these things. But you will definitely, there's a potential for you to hear stuff about, you know, entrepreneurship and investment and, you know, how capitalism is awesome. They have a different point of view. It doesn't mean that the information that they're working off of isn't correct. It's just that they have a different conclusion about, you know, what is the best economic system. But we need to understand where they're coming from so that we can talk about these things and hopefully influence them. Because if you know, pop off with, you know, and eat the rich, they're just going to shut you out. Yeah, no, David's Tiger is pretty cool. Unrelated, one of my favorite AI from newer media are from an anime series called Eden. I think it's a great example of sentient AI. Yeah, no, there's definitely a bunch of AI in popular media and in you know, in current media that, let's say, not so popular, but whatever. You know, that where the AI is not just the villain anymore. One of the games I was talking about earlier that I am eventually going to play on a game stream, you actually are the AI. And I know nothing about it other than that, and that you somehow influence the crew. I don't want to know anything about it. I want to go into the game cold, just the same way I did with Detroit. You know, so that I can give you an honest experience. The game is called Observation. I think there's an observer and there's an observation. But yeah, let's get into this video and we'll see where we go.
Is there anything that makes humans irreplaceable? So are we getting into a stage where there's nothing that humans can do that AI won't be able to do?
From a functional standpoint, from an objective standpoint.
Hey, what up, Kaiputer? What's happening, homie? I hope you're enjoying your vacation. There's a city where Paraspora, where you're colonizing Mars and have to make decisions along the way that influence the growth of your character. Yeah, no, I love video games.
I don't think so. And that actually begs a very deep philosophical and spiritual question, which is, what is the point of living? What is the point of being a human? And that is something that I've done some work on. I wrote a paper or a short book called Post-Nihilism, where what I suspect is that we are barreling towards what I call a nihilistic crisis, or actually we're in the middle of a nihilistic crisis. And it actually started with the Industrial Revolution. If you look at a lot of poetry and literature, works of fiction during the rise of the Industrial Revolution, a lot of people had a lot of existential anxiety about what was the point of being human in an era of machines. And this kind of pops up every now and then, right? Same thing happened with computers, with the advent of, high-speed computers, nuclear weapons, so on and so forth. Technological advancements tend to give us some existential anxiety. But to your question about, like, okay, what is the benefit of being a human in a world where, from a productivity standpoint or an economic standpoint, machines can do everything that we can do better, faster, and cheaper? What's the point? And so that is where we have to change our orientation towards how we value our own life and our own subjective experience. So that's a deeply, deeply philosophical and religious perspective or question. And it's really interesting because depending on someone's spiritual upbringing or spiritual disposition, the question lands very differently, because many religious doctrines around the world basically say that humans have a soul and that sets us apart. And so whether or not that's true, people have a model for just saying my subjective experience of being is very meaningful and it is unique. And so part of overcoming a nihilistic crisis is we all have to face that, whether or not we believe in souls or God or whatever. And we have to kind of go back to basics and look at the subjective experience of our own being. And so back to your question earlier about children, I suspect that children who grow up with AI, they will just intrinsically know, oh yeah, my experience is different from this machine, and that's okay. And that they won't have any existential anxiety about it. I hope, at least.
Are you hopeful for the future, or do you have this anxiety?
No, I am. I think I'm biologically programmed to be optimistic. I can't be cynical. And I part of that is that I've done a tremendous amount of work to understand what the dangers and risks are. And I've also tried to contribute to coming up with a more optimistic outcome. The machines, so we all learned this from watching Scooby-Doo. The monsters are always humans, right? There's no such thing as an evil monster out there. The problem is always humans. And so this is a big reason that I've done my work, is because, you know, it's not that a machine is going to replace you and that's a bad thing, right? We all fantasize about like, hey, I want to, you know, go live in the countryside and just go fishing every day. We all know what we want to do if we don't have to work. What we are truly afraid of is not being able to take care of ourselves. Is that if the machine takes our job, we're going to go hungry, we're going to lose our home, we're going to end up lonely and whatever.
And this is, even though we come to different conclusions, right? Like, again, David is still a fan of capitalism, believes in investment and entrepreneurship and all that stuff. But fundamentally, he comes to a lot of the same conclusions that I have, right? Like, you know, that the problem is not that no one should be concerned about losing their job, right? In a perfect world, you should be looking for the opportunity for that job, you know, that work to be replaced with automation, right? That should not be your reason for being, to go flip a burger or even, you know, like pull food out of the ground, if it can be done by a robot. Now, if you enjoy farming, like if you follow me on Twitter, you see the plants. I love plants. I love growing plants in my yard. So that's an extension of farming. That is different from farming for the purposes of feeding people, right? But again, like, you will probably have some people who enjoy that process and like living out in the country, and they will be there, you know, just as like a human supervisor around the robots, you know, making sure that all the food gets done. People should not need to have jobs, 100%. I anytime anyone, especially if they happen to refer to me as a cat boy, there's a meme with somebody holding the gun, put the ears on. That's what I think. You know, and again, like, I'm not saying you can't farm, right? Like, that would not be the point. The point is that you shouldn't have to farm, you know. Yeah, like, I mean, we should be looking. Our system, it's the same thing, right? Like, I'm going to say the same thing you already know and the same thing I've said 1,000 times. Our method of distribution is the problem. We make more than enough food for all the people, plus we throw away way too much of the food that we produce, and everything is, a matter of the bottleneck caused by capitalism. Someone needs to get paid, or the people can't eat, and that's just silliness. It's silly buggers. Yeah, no, that's a perfect way to look at it. My vocation is helping others understand and use technology in their lives. My job is phone-based customer support. Exactly. Like, even though working in a call center is hot garbage and like is terrible, like, I enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed, especially you've got the little old lady who calls you on the phone and is trying to figure out how to connect to the internet, and you make that happen. That right there, that's a win. You helped another human being. That is as it should be. All right.
That's the actual fear. Nobody actually wants to keep working, right? I remember one of the advertisements for health insurance here in America was, you get to keep your health insurance.
And like, what is one of the questions that comes up whenever whenever the socialists are challenged on their socialist utopia is, who's going to want to do this job, the shitty jobs or any of those kind of things, who's going to want to do that? Well, the robots. The robots won't care about doing the shitty job because they're if they have a subjective experience, it'll be completely different. Right? Like, it would be more akin, like, let's say you have a robot janitor, right? That janitor, if it had a subjective experience even, would be more akin to someone doing science, right? Like, they're just cleaning up the biological waste of the things that they take care of. It's not the same experience that a human has when dealing with the detritus of other humans, right? Like, it's two completely different things, and it needs to be viewed that way. Like, they're not going to have that same experience. You don't want to drive the garbage trucks, the robots. Yeah, and like, I mean, the robots will do it better. I doubt there will be people who get to drive the garbage trucks anymore. Except, like, there will probably be a place where you can go and drive big trucks, If we have any jobs during the dawn of machines, it will becoming the greatest engineers. Like, some of us, yeah. The robot janitors win will be a clean environment. Exactly. But, like, subjectively, yes. Right? Like, but that's it. That's one of the things we have to be careful of, because the easiest way to clean the environment is to, like, the nicest, easiest way would be to lock the door and prevent any humans from coming in and using that bathroom, for instance. Right? Or the not nice way is, you can keep the bathroom clean if there are no humans. Even if there are accidents, the only thing in danger will be the other robot's metal chassis. Like, they are going to operate on a different paradigm than we do. And again, like, paradigm left, but and it's just funny how much the word paradigm keeps coming up. Yeah. Like, I am still a fan of the self-driving vehicle. Exactly. Like, there are so much that happens within a vehicle that's designed around the human that is unnecessary for the functioning of the vehicle. And if you could just replace it with a robot, and make the entire thing a robot, it would be much better off. we need more Asimov plus plus plus, right? It's not just Asimov because there are flaws within the three laws of robotics.
Like your health, nobody likes health insurance. It's a necessary evil, right? Jobs, occupations are a necessary evil.
AI's inevitable conclusion will be taking the job from the hardest working citizens of the world, millionaire Twitch streamers like Hasan. They're coming. Was it Vela 987? There are multiple AI Twitch streams already going. It's happening now, and the AI, that's it. Vidal 987. Yeah, that, like, significantly more people are watching Vidal 987 than are watching me. You know what I mean? AI Jesus, the Simpsons one, the Seinfeld one, the SpongeBob one. What up, Goku? This is what I'm talking about. Like, why can't I get a raid for me? I pray to AI Jesus to raid into me. You know what I mean?
Of the economic environment that we're in and the technological limitations that we're in. And so as these things progress, this is I'm basically just unpacking why I'm optimistic. As these things progress, I hope that we're all going to be able to have kind of a back to basics moment where it's like you wake up one day and it's like, how do you actually want to live, right? If you want to go fishing every day, do it. If you want to focus on being an opera singer, go do that. We all have stuff that we want to do, but that we sacrifice for the sake of earning enough money to take care of ourselves. And that is the reality for most of us today.
I suppose one of the reasons why we have this worry is because currently
Yeah, this is like, I feel being as generous as I possibly can to like the capitalist purists, the inventors of capitalism, right? Is exactly what you're talking about. There's fundamental flaws even in that, but that is a better version of capitalism than we currently have, and that's what the system used to be set up for, the capitalism to be more like that, right? The capitalist in me is not the capitalist people normally think. Even the capitalist in me is like, you cannot hoard money. You must use the money on advancing helpful evolutions of your company or your designs. Yeah. I mean, and again, there's still a bunch of issues that we could go into regarding that, but overall, that is a better form of capitalism than what we have with shareholder capitalism as it currently exists. You know what I mean? Yeah, like I can have a conversation with someone who approaches capitalism from that direction rather than someone who, thinks Elon Musk is the Jim Jam.
Live in sort of a negotiated environment, right? The success of labor movements was because labor was needed. When humans are no longer needed, there's sort of a worry that we're not going to have the opportunity to go fishing, right? We're going to have nothing, and I guess that's the worry that you're pointing at. What do you think the first jobs are that are going to go?
Well, there's already been quite a few layoffs. Various communities on Reddit or private communities on Discord. So, for instance, my fiance's, we're both writers, but she's on a few private writing communities. Copywriters have already been laid off and replaced by AI. Marketing teams have been notified that they've got a year until they're all going to get laid off and replaced by AI generated images and AI generated emails. So it's happening. That's that's where we're at now. I guess to your larger point of if we're all replaceable, what's the bottom line? And the fact of the matter is, from a corporate perspective, from the perspective of neoliberalism, human labor is one of the most expensive aspects of productivity, and it's also the biggest constraint. You look at population decline in places like China and Japan, because China just crested, right? So from here on out, China's population is going down for at least the next century. Japan has been in decline for a couple decades now, ditto for Italy and a few other nations. So their labor force is contracting, right? And from an economic perspective, that's really bad. for nations. So AI hopefully will actually shore up those labor markets and actually replace lost human labor. Now, because humans are so expensive, right? You can pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, and it can basically serve as an executive assistant and personal coach, and it can replace literally thousands of dollars worth of labor, and it costs $20 a month. ChatGPT is infinitely cheaper than most human employees. And that's only going to get better, right? Because either the model is going to get more efficient and cheaper, or it's going to get smarter and more powerful and therefore more valuable, or both in all likelihood. So one of the things that I predict is that we're going to have a post-labor market economy before too long. And in that respect, basically economic productivity will be decoupled from human labor. And in that case, you're going to see quadrillion-dollar valuation for companies that have no employees. And that might sound like that could be an ingredient for a dystopian world that nobody wants to live in. We'll get to like the regulation and stuff of that later. But from a purely GDP perspective, AI is going to be the best thing that ever happened to GDP, to economics, because again, it will decouple human labor from the constraint, and that there will still be a few constraints: natural resources, rare minerals, fresh water, arable land. Right? There's always going to be some physical constraints, but we're going to remove human labor as one of the main constraints to economics, and that is going to mandate kind of those things, like you said, like if you want to go fishing, well, how, right? If you don't have any economic power, if you don't have any way to make a demand, then that's a big problem, which is what we're going to have to negotiate. We're going to have to negotiate a new social contract, basically.
Yeah, Conscious Canuck. I'm gonna call you CC if that's all right. The current disruption with the double exponential growth curve of technology is coming at the same time of the late stage capitalism and the political instability that has led to and the culmination of years of let's say authoritarian governance, right? Like, so all these things just happen to be hitting at the same time. If you step far enough back, you might be able to see corollaries between the things. I'm just taking them as, three distinct examples in order to indicate stuff that's happening right now. So it's like, there's a tremendous amount of concern and a tremendous amount of stress already, and now this, right? And we've already been living under the stress of climate change, but the climate change apocalypse is so slow from a human perception point that it's difficult to care about. And then the pandemic, the disease apocalypse was just a shit show, and we just learned to live with it. And this is the thing, is that so many of us have learned to live with all these things that are stressors that we just, okay, this is just one more on the pile, right? One more thing I can't do anything about, so I'm not going to freak out about it, but my body is going to experience an increased amount of stress and anxiety over it that I'm not going to be able to do anything about anyways, because I don't have health care. What up, bipedal meatbag? I asked ChatGPT to write a satire article about Mike Pence running for president. Nice. Yeah, you absolutely, you should be using all the AIs to do as many things as you can so that you can survive this tumultuous period, right? That's really what it comes down to. Anything you can do to get an edge, you should be taking advantage of in that regard.
What do you think the impact is going to be on births ultimately? Do you think people are going to just start having AI children because it's cheaper?
That's again, I'm not telling you what to do, but are you publishing those somewhere? Like, because that is definitely something that you could be doing. I like the way that ChatGPT does recipes. Something to consider. Get your mark out there. Contribute to the sum total of human creation. But it's up to you. I'm not pushing anybody. It's tough as it is. I just want people to do anything that they think they're capable of. Yeah, there's a thing called Jollof rice I'm a huge fan of. What a good graphics version. I don't know what you mean by that. Jollof rice. I highly recommend Jollof rice. I love it. It's the best rice.
That's a really difficult question. I could see it going either way.
What is a good graphics generator? Like an art generator like Midjourney? I prefer Leonardo.ai. It has all the features that I'm looking for. You can upload a picture into it as a reference. You can weight that reference picture in order to like increase or decrease the amount that you want it to pay attention to that. It has both positive prompts and negative prompts. It has a variety of different models that you can run. People are training their own models, which are available to the community, and you can, if you so desire, use it to train your own model based on your particular artwork or artwork that you like. So Leonardo, like Da Vinci, Leonardo.ai. Yeah. Old Lobster is a fan of Midjourney. My wife is a fan of Midjourney. So they are like Midjourney. I think is the best as far as like being ahead of the pack. But I really feel like Leonardo is like right there with it.
There's plenty of books and fiction out there and research papers. People have predicted, the population explosion, that Earth will become uninhabitable because we'll have billions and billions of people that we can't feed. Other people are worried that, the population is going to collapse. And I actually had a pretty long conversation about this just to kind of clarify my own ideas, again, with ChatGPT. And so there's a few driving factors that cause birth rates to decline. Women entering the workforce, education and empowerment for women, access to birth control. So it turns out when a society advances and becomes a little bit more sophisticated or gains more access or some, Gini coefficient goes up, whatever metrics you use, education goes up, fertility rates go down. Some of that has to do with the choices of family planning. Men and women decide to have fewer children. Women have more control over their own fate. And so fertility rates tend to go down. And this is a very, very reliable trend globally. Regardless of culture, regardless of other economic conditions, as education rates go up, as women in the workforce goes up, fertility rates goes down. This is a global thing with no exceptions, right? So if you extrapolate that out, then you can probably make a relatively safe assumption that as AI spreads around the world and economics and education and everything goes up, that fertility rates will continue to go down.
I mean, that is a point, Vera. Like the idea of the expense of having a child is very high, so it's something you have to accommodate. But there's also a thing like when you have a situation where you have like fewer access, where you have lower access to resources and technology, then you usually require additional children because some of those children will die, right? All right, Lord Locke, you take care. Some of those children will die. So you have additional children to compensate for that fact. when you have greater access to resources and technology, then you know those children are going to survive. And there's a thing that goes along with that where the general conclusion is that the more time you can spend with a particular child, the more mentally healthy that child will become. So you want to have fewer children also for that reason, right? Like there are many different things. It's not one thing, two things. It's many different reasons, and they all come together in this trend that societies, as they gain higher access to resources and technology, tend to have fewer children. There are multiple ways to combat that, where people could just contribute their sperm and eggs or DNA to a bank, and that bank could produce the children, and the children could be raised by people who want children without actually going through the process of having children. They could be put into people with wombs who want to bear children in that way. There's definitely like a whole bunch of different ways that you could combat that and keep the population at a reasonable level. My brain was put in a robot body, I probably wouldn't cough my face off half as much. Yeah, that's the thing. That's one of the things is like they have the one like the problem in RoboCop where they would put the brain in the body and it would go nuts, or that was also in this Keanu Reeves movie I tried watching and I couldn't. I don't feel like I would have that same experience. I feel like I could be put into a robot body without like losing my goddamn mind. I have no mouth and I must cough. Yeah.
Around the whole world. South Korea, I believe, has the lowest fertility rate on the planet at 0.8 births per woman, which is just above a third of the replacement rate. So it's entirely possible that under these trends, that population collapse is actually the most real danger that we face. So, well, what do you do about that? One thing that I think is going to happen is that AI will lead to medical breakthroughs. And I suspect that we are close, if not already, at the place of what's called longevity escape velocity, which is that the medical breakthroughs that happen every year extend your life by more than a year. Mm-hmm. So basically, hypothetically, if you are healthy enough today, if you're not about to die, and you have access to decent enough healthcare, then the compounding returns of medical research and AI means that you and I could live to be several centuries old, which means that the population of the planet will stabilize as birth rates continue to decline. Now, I do think that some people will ultimately choose like AI companions as they become more realistic. Certainly, a lot of people have seen shows like Westworld. One of my favorite characters of all time is Data from Star Trek, and I would love to have Data as a friend, right? So I absolutely suspect that anthropomorphic machines will be part of our lives before too long. What form they take, whether it's a robotic dog that never dies, or a walking, talking friend that is always there to hang out, or if it's a romantic partner, like in the movie Her, with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. There's lots of possibilities for how life is going to be. But like I said, I think one of the most reliable, durable trends is fertility rates go down. So the question is, will that be offset by longevity?
So in other words, rather than sort of the dangerous Skynet that some people envision, we might just get outcompeted sexually into extinction, something along those lines.
Yeah, that's entirely possible, especially when you consider that actually there was a line from Terminator 2. It was when Sarah Connor was watching the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, play with John, and she realized that the machine has infinite patience and will always be there because John was his mission. And I realized that from a philosophical standpoint, one reading of that is that the machine could be a better parent than a human parent could ever be. Because for a child, from a child's perspective, they should be their parent's primary mission. But that's never the case, right? Parents are humans too, and they have their own needs, their own desires, their own plans. But when you have a machine that if it is designed that you are its primary mission, whether you're an adult or a child, like that could be, like, from some perspectives, a better outcome. Obviously, some people are probably cringing, which is understandable. That's a perfectly healthy reaction to the idea of replacing children and parents with machines, but it's possible, right? Hypothetically possible.
Yeah, and it's, one of the things I like about David is how is that he is positive and like that. What up, Alex? If my parents had no other focus in me, I'd be far worse off. You'd become so dependent on your parents. Like, there's definitely like a potential balance, but again, most of us, I'm going to assume that most of you are in, the United States or Western Europe and have a different culture, the single family home culture of those areas, right? And different, like the concept of Ubuntu, right? Like is more of a village, the Hillary Clinton, it takes a village kind of thing. That you can have a different culture which will lead to different outcomes, you know what I mean? Yeah, like and again, I feel like there is potential to, like, I mean, why can't we craft culture all the time? It just tends to happen as kind of like a mass aggregate of little events. Why can't we, work together to create that kind of culture? But I mean, that could be like excessively naive. Sex androids, especially for advanced fetish. I mean, that is a thing. And like, I mean, one way why I was talking earlier about the children in the population and stuff like that, the sex robots could collect your donation, you know what I mean? Raised by Wolves, dealt with the AI parents. They were pretty good parents until she went evil. It like, I watched all the first season and some of the second. I don't think I got all the way through it. But yeah, it was like there was a lot of good, but inevitably when you're dealing with stories told by people, the AI or the robots, what have you, they act in order to fulfill the desires of the humans within the story. A lot of the thing that parents do is orient you toward a stable adulthood, and part of that is leaving you alone. Yeah, like, there is a balance, right? Like, there's definitely a balance. Yeah, no, and y'all have heard me rage on Moonfall. Like, no reason in Moonfall is given for why the AI decides to wipe out the race that created the AI. It just does, right? Like, it is such lazy writing, and I'm honestly gonna fight someone. All right. Here's so one of the takes is hi. Hold on.
Hi.
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 I sometimes hear people.
Okay. So one of the things.
I sometimes hear people saying.
Robert, stop. Okay. So, one of the things, like, why don't we raise the, not the guy from Computer File, but not Computer File. Why don't we raise the AI like children? And Robert is going to tell us that.
Hi. I sometimes hear people saying, if you want to create an artificial general intelligence that's safe and has human values, why not just raise it like a human child?
I've not read the lore of the comics from Overwatch. Yeah, no, I feel like I would also get mad.
Do a series of these why not just videos. You know, why not just use the 3 laws? Why not just turn it off? But yeah, why not raise an AGI like a child? Seems reasonable enough at first glance, right? Humans are general intelligences, and we seem to know how to raise them to behave morally. A young AGI would be a lot like a young human. Remember a long while back on Computer File, I was talking about this thought experiment of a stamp collecting AGI? I use that because it's a good way of getting away from anthropomorphizing the system. You're not just imagining a human mind, the system has these clearly laid out rules by which it operates. It has an internet connection and a detailed internal model it can use to make predictions about the world. It evaluates every possible sequence of packets it can send through its internet connection, and it selects the one which it thinks will result in the most stamps collected after a year. What happens if you try to raise the stamp collector like a human child? Is it going to learn human ethics from your good example? No, it's going to kill everyone. Values are not learned by osmosis. The stamp collector doesn't have any part of its code that involves learning and adopting the values of humans around it, so it doesn't do that. Now, some of you may be saying, how do you know AGIs won't be like humans? What if we make them by copying the human brain? And it's true, there is one kind of AGI-like thing that's enough like a human that raising it like a human might kind of work, a whole brain emulation. But I'd be very surprised if the first AGIs are exact replicas of brains. The first planes were not like birds. The first submarines were not like fish. Making an exact replica of a bird or a fish requires way more understanding than just making a thing that flies or a thing that swims. And I'd expect making an exact replica of a brain to require a lot more understanding than just making something that thinks. By the time we understand the operation of the brain well enough to make working whole brain emulations, I expect we'll already know enough to make things that are less human, but that function as AGIs. So I don't know what the first AGIs will be like, and they'll probably be more human-like than the stamp collector, but unless they're close copies of human brains, they won't be similar enough to humans for raising them like children to automatically work. Blindly copying the brain probably isn't going to help us. We're going to have to really understand how humans learn their values. Without a good system for that, you may as well try raising a crocodile like it's a human child. Human value learning is a specific, complex mechanism that evolved in humans and won't be in AGIs by default. We look at the way children learn things so quickly. We say they're like information sponges, right? They're just empty, so they suck up whatever's around them. But they don't suck up everything. They only learn specific kinds of things. Raise a child around people speaking English, it will learn English. In another environment, it might learn French. But it's not going to reproduce the sound of the vacuum cleaner. It's not going to learn the binary language of moisture vaporators or whatever. The brain isn't learning and copying everything. It's specifically looking for something that looks like a human natural language. Because there's this big, complex, existing structure put in place by evolution, and the brain is just looking for the final pieces. I think values are similar. You can think of the brains of young humans as having a little slot in them, just waiting to accept a set of human social norms and rules of ethical behavior. There's this whole giant, complicated machine of emotions and empathy and theory of other minds and so on, built up over millions of years of evolution. And the young brain is just waiting to fill in the few remaining blanks based on what the child observes when they're growing up. When you raise a child, you're not writing the child's source code. At best, you're writing the configuration file. A child's upbringing is like a control panel on a machine. You can press some of the buttons and turn some of the dials, but the machinery has already been built by evolution. You're just changing some of the settings. So if you try to raise an unsafe AGI as though it were a human child, you can provide all the right inputs which in a human would produce a good moral adult. But it won't work because you're pressing buttons and turning dials on a control panel that isn't hooked up to anything. Unless your AGI has all of this complicated stuff that's designed to learn and adopt values from the humans around it, it isn't going to do that. Okay, but can't we just program that in? Yeah, hopefully we can, but there's no just about it. This is called value learning, and it's an important part of AI safety research. It may be that an AGI will need to have a period early on where it's learning about human values by interacting with humans. And that might look a bit like raising a child if you squint, but making a system that's able to undergo that learning process successfully and safely is hard. It's something we don't know how to do yet, and figuring it out is a big part of AI safety research. So, just raise the AGI like a child is not a solution. It's at best a possible rephrasing of the problem.
Anyway, I don't think even a well-raised brain emulation can be considered safe. I'd prefer a strategy that doesn't amount to give a person superhuman power and hope they use it beneficially.
I want to say a quick thank you to all of my amazing Patreon supporters.
Thank you. Thank you to the amazing Patreon supporters. So yeah, like, there's a lot of things around AI that I think people do the anthropomorphization, like at a large enough scale, Goku, yes. Like, I mean, look at any of the video games that you played, The Sims, Civilization, City Skylines, anything that has these little iterations of people in them, and then just scale that up and make them quantitatively like more involved. Okay, again, you got a computer, right? Your computer requires a special interface, a special language, a completely different way of interacting than does any of your human associates or children, right? You cannot treat your computer like you would a friend, and you cannot treat your friend like you would a computer. Like, not because you might love your computer, like, in there, I don't care, but you can't interact with them in that same way. It doesn't work. It's fundamentally different. Well, no, you have to be on the back because you can't be on the arm. Because if you're on the arm, no. And again, Alina, I think that there is going to be a scenario where you will, on the surface, interact with technology in a more similar way that you do with humans. You are going to, you are going to talk to it more and, type into it less. You are going to, read less and listen more, right? And there's a variety of different things that are just from a convenience aspect. Can't lie, I talk to chat GPTs the same way I do people. Yeah, in the sense that you might type to it and like that, but you can't just word speak to it, you know what I mean? And that will happen, And I think, don't get me wrong, I think there's tremendous value in that as far as adding that kind of communication elements to the data set. You should speak to it in a very, regular fashion. You should be clear and concise with what you're trying to ask, but you need to do it in, that a natural way in order to improve its data set so that, going forward, it will have better and better examples of how humans communicate. Yeah, and I want I want it to be even more human. And yes, I too am very polite when I talk to the machines because I want to go down as one of the good ones if the AI safety thing goes off the rails and things go bad. I'm hoping I might be kept around as part of the zoo population. I can definitely understand that. On the hi.
Stuart Russell.
On the God damn it, YouTube. Hi. Could you just leave the buttons and stop moving the buttons in while you're doing the thing?
Hi. Stuart Russell is an AI researcher.
Thank you. Jesus Christ.
Stuart Russell is an AI.
Stop. I don't know what your problem is today. It could be. Ferris definitely, prefers my attention. Why am I touching the mouse when I could be touching the cat, right? So this is going to be a video on some of the 10 reasons to ignore AI safety. We've touched on this at a couple of times. We might have even watched this video before, but I think it's important to have it here today as part of AI Safety Week.
AI researcher who I've talked about a few times on this channel already. He's been advocating for these kinds of safety or alignment ideas to other AI researchers for quite a few years now.
Fair.
And apparently the reaction he gets is often something like this.
In stage 1, we say nothing is going to happen.
Stage 2, we say something may be going to happen, but we should do nothing about it.
In stage 3, we say that maybe we should do something about it, but there's nothing we can do.
Stage 4, we say maybe there was something we could have done, but it's too late now.
So he's put together a list of some of the responses that people give him. That list is included in a paper, in some of his talks, and in his recent book, Human Compatible, which is very good, by the way. Check that one out. But as far as I know, it's not yet a standalone YouTube video. Even though it's perfect YouTube video material, it's 10 reasons why people who aren't you are wrong about AI safety. So that's what this is, 10 reasons people give to not pay attention to AI safety. Now, before I start, I need to do a sort of double disclaimer. Firstly, as I said, this is not my list, it's Stuart Russell's, and he gets the credit for it. But secondly, Professor Russell and I are not in any way affiliated, and I've adapted his list and given my own take on it. So this video should not be considered representative of Stuart Russell's views. Got that? If there's anything in this video that's good, credit goes to Stuart Russell, and if there's anything that's bad, blame goes to me. Okay, without further ado, 10 reasons people give to not pay attention to AI safety. Reason 1. We'll never actually make artificial general intelligence. This is apparently a fairly common response, even from AI researchers, which is very...
And this, there are multiple issues, he's going to touch on them, but this is a fairly common response from people. You saw it here in this chat. A person indicated that there is no way for us to make something smarter than ourselves, and that is incorrect on its face, because we are smarter than our ancestors, right? Smarter. We have a capacity for more intelligence, and they are the extension of our intelligence and the uses of our intelligence. All this is well beyond what our ancestors were capable of. If we are capable of producing a technology that can think and that can do reinforcement learning and self-improvement, then it will be capable of being smarter than us. To to a scale that I cannot communicate to you. right? Like the difference between the ant or the bacteria and you, right? And I'm not joking, and I'm not being hyperbolic. This is what we're talking about, right? Both in speed, in cognitive power, and processing power, like.
Very strange when you consider the decades that the field of AI has spent defending attacks from the outside, from people like Hubert Dreyfus, who I have a video about, people arguing that human-level AI is impossible. AI researchers have always said, no, of course it's possible, and of course we're going to do it. And now people are raising safety concerns. Some of them are saying, well, of course we're never going to do it. The fact is that human-level intelligence, general intelligence, has been a goal and a promise of the field of artificial intelligence from the beginning. And it does seem quite weird to say, yes, we are working towards this as hard as we can, but don't worry, we'll definitely fail. Imagine you find yourself on a bus, and the bus driver says, oh yeah, I am driving towards the edge of that cliff, but don't worry, the bus is bound to break down before we get there. Now, they're not necessarily being disingenuous. They may actually believe that we'll never achieve AGI, but the thing is, eminent scientists saying that something is impossible has never been a very reliable indicator. I mean, they certainly say that about a lot of things that really are impossible, but they also say it about a lot of things that then go on to happen, sometimes quite quickly. For example, respected scientists were making public statements to the effect that heavier-than-air human flight was impossible, right up until the Wright brothers made their first flight at Kitty Hawk. And in fact, I think even slightly after that, because the news travelled fairly slowly in those days. Similarly, and this is something I talked about on Computerphile, the great physicist Ernest Rutherford, Nobel Prize winner, Lord Rutherford in fact at that time, gave a speech in 1933 in which he implied that it was impossible to harness energy from nuclear reactions. He said anyone who looked for a source of power in the transformation of the atoms was talking moonshine. That speech was published in the Times, and Leo Szilard read it, went for a walk, and while he was on his walk, he had the idea for using neutrons to make a self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. So in that case, the time taken from the world's most eminent scientists claiming that a thing was completely infeasible to someone having the idea that makes it happen was, as far as we can tell, somewhere around 16 hours. So it's...
And this is, like I've spoken before, about how, you know, when humans see something done, even if it's, like, imaginary, if it's in, you know, TV movies, if they read about it in a book, anything like that, then they are... someone will be compelled to make that a reality. The second fastest way to get something like that done is to tell humans that it's impossible. Because there are certain people who just really, really love to do the impossible. And the impossible happens with an almost annoying frequency once you put it out there into the world.
It's happened several times that something which the best researchers say can't be done has been achieved soon after. Do I think AGI is going to be discovered very soon? No. But I can't completely rule it out either. We don't know what we don't know. So it seems pretty clear to me that, unless we destroy ourselves some other way first, we will sooner or later figure out how to make human-level artificial general intelligence. Reason 2. Well, maybe we will make AGI at some point, but it's far too soon to worry about it now. Suppose we detected a huge asteroid on a collision course with Earth. It's one of those mass extinction event type asteroids, and it's going to hit us in, say, 40 years. How soon would be too soon to start worrying, to start working on solutions? I would say it's pretty sensible to start worrying immediately. Not panicking, of course, that's never useful, but at least spending some resources on the problem, gathering more information, putting together a plan, and so on. Or suppose SETI got an extraterrestrial message that said, "Hey, what's up, humanity? We're a highly advanced alien civilization, and we're on our way to Earth. We'll be there in, say, 50 years. Again, how long should we just sit on that and do nothing at all? How long before it's sensible to start thinking about how we might handle the situation? I would say the question doesn't just depend on how long we have, but how long we need. What are we going to have to do, and how long is that likely to take us? If we need to build some kind of rocket to go and divert the asteroid, how long is that going to take? And how does that compare with how long we have? The thing is, in the case of AGI, we really don't know how long it will take to solve the alignment problem. When you look at it and consider it carefully, it appears to be quite a hard problem. It requires technical work that could take a long time.
That right there, if you don't consider it carefully, it appears very easy. This is part of what makes it hard, right?
Quite a hard problem. It requires technical work that could take a long time, but it also requires philosophical work. It seems like it might depend on finding good solutions to some philosophical problems that people have been wrestling with for a very long time. We don't have a great history of solving difficult philosophical problems very quickly, so it seems to me entirely plausible that we'll need more time to solve this problem than we actually have. And of course, we don't know how long we have either. Probably it'll be a long time, but predicting the future is extremely hard, and we can't rule out shorter timelines. It could be that we're closer than we think we are, and deep learning will just scale up to AGI without many major innovations. Probably not, but it could be. And it doesn't seem impossible that we could have a Rutherford and Szilard type situation. It could be that there's one weird trick to general intelligence, and once someone discovers that, full AGI is only a couple of years away. In fact, it's not totally impossible that someone already found it and has been working on it for a while in secret. None of these seem very likely, but confidently declaring that it's definitely too soon to even start working on this is bizarrely overconfident. The lower estimates for how long we have seem a lot lower than the higher estimates for how long we need. The best time to start working on this is not far in the future. It was probably quite a while ago now. Reason 3. This is similar to reason 2.
Right? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now.
Worrying about AI safety is like worrying about overpopulation on Mars. I don't think this is a very tight analogy for a few reasons. One is that overpopulation is one of those problems that very definitely cannot sneak up on you. Overpopulation can't take you by surprise in the way that a new technological development can. But also, the safety concerns we're talking about are not like overpopulation. They're much more immediate and more basic. It's not like, what if Mars becomes overpopulated? More like...
I don't have any idea, Vera. Like, the safest ones are going to be your Googles and your OpenAIs and your Microsofts and things like that. If you want quick bucks, then, you know, it's basically a shot in the dark. Because one of the things, you know, I actually worked for a stockbroking firm as basically a cold caller. I would try to get people on the phone, and I did get one whale. I did get someone who was like, you know, heavily invested in the stock market, and I said the right words, and I was able to get them to a broker and did the whole thing. But the other thing that experience taught me is how much of a crapshoot that you know, the stock market is, and this was, you know, like 30 years ago, right? Like, so it's, you know, yeah, there's a bunch of ways you can safely invest your money, and then there are, if you're trying for that big cash in, then it's a shot in the dark. You know what I mean? Yeah, you got to really find your own way. I would not want to offer anyone financial advice, and I think that a lot of financial advice is either super safe, which is fine to an extent, or really just like, you know, akin to playing the lottery. You know, you never know. So.
We don't have any very good reason to expect to be able to survive on Mars for even a day. And there are projects currently underway trying to create AGI. So it's as though the Mars mission project is already underway, and one engineer says to another, you know, we're putting all this work into getting people to Mars, but almost none into what we're going to do if we actually manage it. I mean, how do we even know that Mars is safe? Well, I think it's too soon to worry about that. Don't you think we should wait until we get there? No, I don't think we should. I think it might be much more difficult to work on these kinds of concerns once we're already on the surface of Mars. I think we should do the safety research ahead of time. What kind of safety research do you want to do? Well, I was thinking it might be good to have some kind of suit that people could wear in case the environment of Mars turns out to be harmful in some way. We don't know that the surface of Mars is harmful. Could be anything. Well, exactly, we don't know, so why not take precautions? What we do know doesn't seem great. I mean, our what to do if we make it to Mars research has never had much funding, so we can't be sure about this, but our preliminary work seems to suggest that the atmosphere of Mars might not actually be breathable. So we've been thinking about things like suits, and there's some early work on something we're calling an airlock that might turn out to be useful. I don't see how we could possibly hope to design anything like that when we don't even know what Mars is going to be like. How are we going to have any chance of designing these safety features properly with so little information? No, we're just going to go, and we'll figure it out when we get there. Could I maybe stay on Earth? No, everybody's going together all at the same time, you know that. All of humanity.
Yeah, no, like, I would, like, Venus has an atmosphere that literally destroys probes. Mars would be, like, closer to the moon, but honestly, I don't at this point in time really see any, okay. I don't see any reason to go. We need to colonize the moon, because from the moon we can just transport stuff up to the moon, and then we can fire stuff off into space with basically rail guns, right? Like, we don't need rockets in the same way anymore. And we can put a bunch of, solar collectors on the moon. There's a whole bunch of reasons to go to the moon. There aren't as many good reasons to go to Mars. Yeah, we absolutely need to be on the moon. I mean, it's possible we destroy a lot of stuff by digging into it. Yeah, no, we absolutely, we need a nice, cool moon base with all the trimmings, and that needs to be like where we launch out into other parts of space from. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Because there's no atmosphere to prevent the micrometeorites from destroying it. But I don't know. Some sort of self-healing, self-repairing, whatever. Super magic technology that future people will figure out. Or AI will.
It's going to be great. Reason 4. Well, look, if you're worried about it being unsafe because the goals are bad, don't put in bad goals. It won't have human goals like self-preservation if you don't put them in there. I have a whole video.
Oh, that too. But that's actually, they overcame that, right? Like, they did that on the spacesuits, or at least on the new spacesuits. Given my understanding is there's a way to discharge that electrostatic charge so you could run that through the solar collectors. I'm more concerned about the micrometeorites, in the short term. I think that is a more difficult problem. Though again, you could probably overcome that with some kind of additional technology that I'm just not thinking of at this this point in time. Well, that right there, Virabot, that is a variation on like a Dyson sphere. And we could have fun with that too, because I'm down for Dyson spheres.
Which I'd recommend checking out. But as a quick summary, there are certain behaviors that we would expect to be exhibited by agents that have a wide range of different goals, because those behaviors are a very good way of achieving a very wide range of goals. Self-preservation is a good example. Agents will act as though they have goals like self-preservation, even if you don't explicitly put them in there, because it doesn't really matter what your goal is, you're probably not going to be able to achieve that goal if you're destroyed. So we can expect agents that are able to understand that they can be destroyed to take steps to prevent that.
I don't know. Miles here has a very convincing video that we might not be as far off, Though he doesn't go with the Dyson sphere, he goes with a Dyson swarm, which admittedly, like, I can see that as having a better utility. But there's a bunch of convergent technology that could be happening, just based on the technology that I'm aware of, right? Like there's so much stuff that we're not aware of because we can't be told everything, because I mean, fuck, we can't. There's a variety of reasons why we can't be told everything. Yeah, I'm not that concerned about fucking up the moon's orbit, because the construction that we're going to do on the moon is going to be like less than. I don't believe it's going to be particularly impactful, right? Like it's going to be, relatively speaking, small, and I don't think we're going to take a whole lot off the moon, and like that. I'm not sure what the Mercury vortex engine is.
Pretty much whatever goals they have.
You can't fetch the coffee if you're dead.
Reason 5. Well, we can just not have explicit goals at all. I think this confusion comes from the fact that a lot of the time when we're talking about safety, we're talking about the problems we might have if the system's goals aren't well aligned with ours, or if the goals aren't specified correctly, and so on.
What up, October? Welcome in. How are you? First time chat. Love to see it. I appreciate you.
And this can make people think that we're talking specifically about designs that have explicitly defined goals. But that's not actually the case. The problems are much more general than that. We'd expect them to occur across a very wide range of possible agent designs. It's just that the ones that have explicitly defined reward functions or utility functions are much easier to talk about. The systems with implicit goals still probably have these problems, but it's just much harder to characterize the problems and think about them, and therefore correspondingly much more difficult to actually deal with those problems.
I'm good. Having a good stream, and like that. You know, the crowd that's in here is nice. I'm glad that people are interested, and I'm glad that everyone. Shout out to everyone in chat right now. Shout out to the lurkers who are just here to learn something. Shout out to everyone who's contributed. Shout out to the memers who are having fun, but like, you know, still participating. Shout out to the people who are going to watch the VOD. Shout out to the people who are going to clip me out of context for their own personal gain. You know, everyone in chat. If there's a street there, somebody grab that username real quick. That's a good one.
So systems with implicit goals are actually less safe, just because it becomes much harder to design them safely. Not having explicit goals doesn't solve the problem and probably makes it worse. I have some safety concerns about this car, this automobile that we're inventing. I'm worried about the steering system. Oh yeah? Yeah, I just don't think we're putting enough thought into designing it to be really reliable and easy to use. Right now it seems like even tiny mistakes by the operator might cause the car to swerve out of control and crash into something. It could be very dangerous. You think the steering system is a cause of safety concerns, do you? Yeah. Well, okay, yeah, we'll just build a car without one. Problem solved. Reason 6. I don't think we should worry, because we're not going to end up with just independent AIs out in the world doing things. There'll be teams with humans and AI systems cooperating with each other. We just have to have humans involved in the process, working as a team with the AI, and they'll keep things safe. So, yes, a lot of the better approaches to AI safety do involve humans and AI systems working together. But just have AI-human teams is sort of like saying, nuclear power plant safety isn't really a concern. We'll just have some humans running it from a control room in such a way that they always have full control over the rate of the reaction. Like, yes, but that's not an actual solution. It's a description of a property that you would want a solution to have. It would be nice to build AGI systems that can work well in a team with humans, but we don't currently know how to do that. What it comes down to is, teamwork is fundamentally about pursuing common goals. So misalignment precludes teamwork. If the AI system's goals aren't aligned with yours, you can't collaborate with it. It wants something different from what you want. So human AI teams aren't a solution to the alignment problem. They actually depend on it being already solved. Reason 7. But this is...
I absolutely agree, Cece. So I was on a... for those of you who weren't here when I talked about this, one of those focus groups. Had a fuck ton of us. And then they broke us into little groups and we watched video and we answered questions and like that. And there were two people, like I was the only one who was like adamantly in favor of automated vehicles at my table. And there were two people at the table who were obviously like, they were adamantly against it, and they vastly overvalue their own ability to drive. Like, this is something that happens. Oh, one of them things. So yeah, like human beings are notoriously bad for overestimating their own abilities at any given thing. That's why you should always be humble, right? Like don't automatically assume you're the shit at whatever, because you might not be. Like, I think that I am the best driver I know, and that's because I use as much automation as possible and I stick to the speed limit and follow the rules. You know what I mean?
It's science. We can't control research. We can't change what people work on. Sure we can, of course we can. We've done it loads of times. It ends up not being very noticeable because we generally don't give that much attention to things that don't happen. But, for example, we basically don't do human genetic engineering or human cloning. We've been able to clone sheep since 1996, and humans are not really different from any other large mammal from the perspective of this kind of work. We could have been doing all kinds of mad science on human genetics for decades now, but we decided not to. There were conferences where agreements were reached. Everyone agreed that they weren't going to do certain types of research, and then we didn't do them. So, agreements within the research community.
Every so often, old lobster, every so often they come up with I see another thing on the ozone layer. It's, if I recall correctly, it's doing well. It's healing. Yeah, exactly, Kvass. Technically safer to follow the behavior to traffic than follow the rules of the road. I have heard this, and I feel that that's one of those things that is said by people who wish to do the things that they shouldn't do, right? Or abdicate a certain responsibility to other drivers being the problem. You know? That's just where I come down on it. Like, I am open to, data. I'd be more than happy to look at your study, but,
are one way. Another way is international treaties. Like, did you know that the 1980 United Nations Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons has a section titled Protocol on Blinding Laser Weapons? Because of that protocol, robots that deliberately shine lasers in people's eyes to blind them are against international law. I didn't know that until after I'd already built one. So it's not a perfect metaphor, but the point is, we don't see blinding laser weapons deployed on the battlefield today. They're basically not a thing. And human genetic engineering is also not really a thing, because we decided that we didn't want to do them, and so we didn't do them. And by the way, if we decide that we don't want to make, for example, lethal autonomous weapon systems, we don't have to make them either. AI researchers as a community.
Well, Goku, one of the things is that you go through a certain amount of training and testing prior to getting your license, and then there's no additional requirement for training and testing from that point going forward. We really need to be on some, continuous training, but then you'll never get that passed because it's money and everything else. I really feel like when you renew your license, you should have to take another test, right? Just to show that you can keep doing it. Yeah, maybe, Alita.
Community can decide the direction of our research, and we should. Reason 8. You're a bunch of Luddites. You're just against AI because you don't understand it. So in response to this, Stuart Russell has a list of people who've raised basically this concern, which includes Alan Turing, I.J. Good, Norbert Wiener, Marvin Minsky, and Bill Gates. And there's another name I would add to this list, which I guess Stuart Russell is not allowed to add, which is Stuart Russell. It doesn't seem reasonable to suggest that these people fear technology because they don't understand it, to say the least. These are some of the biggest contributors to the technological progress of the last century. And secondly, these people aren't against AI. The argument...
Well, see, that's a metaphor, and I am really... I really have a lot of constraints around metaphors, you know what I mean? Is driving in a car like being in a herd of cattle? I don't know that it is. You know, is it more akin to being in a school of fish? Is it more akin to, you know, something else? Like I really need to see. I need to see a study. I can't. And that's another thing. Is like I've been in Canada. Canadian driving is a whole other game.
The argument for AI safety is not an argument against AI, any more than nuclear physicists or engineers who work on containment or waste disposal are somehow against physics. Arguing for speed limits and seatbelts is not the same as arguing to ban cars. We're not against AI because we don't understand it, we're for safety because we do understand it. Reason 9. Well, if there's a problem, we'll just turn it off. Right. This one I've covered extensively elsewhere, links in the description, but in summary, I think superintelligent agents might see that coming. Reason 10. Ixnay on the ISKS-ray. You trying to get us all defunded? Isn't talking about risks kind of bad for business? I'd say, firstly, I don't think that's actually true. We do need to make some changes, but that's not a bad thing for AI research. The solution to these safety concerns is not less AI research, but more, really, just with a slightly different focus. And in fact, I think this is the same kind of mistake made by the nuclear industry in the 50s. They put tremendous effort into reassuring everyone that it was safe. They insisted nothing could possibly go wrong. Nuclear energy was going to be completely safe and perfect, clean and too cheap to meter.
Basic reactor principles and design make an atomic explosion an impossibility.
Arguably, they were so busy reassuring people about safety that they actually didn't emphasize safety enough internally. That's how you get a Chernobyl. That's how you get a 3 Mile Island, and that's how you get a giant public backlash that is tremendously bad for the industry. So I don't actually think that talking about AI safety too much is bad for business, but it couldn't possibly be worse than talking about safety too little. So there we are, that's 10 reasons not to care about AI safety. Some of these I've already covered in more detail in other videos, there will be links in the description to those, and some of them might deserve a whole video to themselves in future. What do you think? Are there any you'd like to hear more about, or have you come across any that I missed? Let me know in the comments.
You know what? It's probably fine. People would never downplay a risk, leaving us totally unprepared.
By thanking my wonderful patrons.
I wasn't done. People would never downplay a risk, leaving us totally unprepared for a major disaster. So yeah. So those are some arguments against AI safety and some easy responses to that. Again, like if this is your first time here or if you're not already in the Discord, all these videos will be contained in the Discord for you to share with your friends and, you know, your enemies, because everyone needs to be talking about, you know, AI. Like, one of the things that, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in the nuclear realm, both, you know, like the fission, the fusion, the thorium salt. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm very interested to see where we go with all that. One of the arguments that I've seen that he didn't cover in this video is the one about how AI first of all, they use a just statement, right? AI, they do the quotes, is just you know, predictor model or some other crap, and that it's just a sales pitch by these companies to to get the bag, right? Like that's where we are at from some people, and because I am way more generous than they are, this is not an invalid concern. There are companies out there that are going to offer you AI, in various capacities, which there's nothing AI about what they're doing, and there's no, it's not anything like that, right? Like it's just a sales pitch. But companies like Microsoft, Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, we are absolutely looking at people who are doing AI stuff, right? Like artificial intelligence, either portions of a general AI or moving in the direction of a general AI. All this is going to continue to occur, and in my opinion, based on the people who I feel have superior arguments, we are looking at that happening sooner than later. Again, David Shapiro, the guy we watched earlier, he's talking 18 months, right? Like at this point, we're talking 17 months. Like there's a bunch of things that you have to ignore in order to pretend that it's, decades away or anything else. There's a whole bunch of shit that's happening that if you actually laid it all out in front of you, you could see how much things have changed on a technological level and how many improvements have occurred within a very short amount of time because of the way that things have been and will continue to develop. The double exponential curve with the growth in technology. Like, I trust Ray Kurzweil. I understand that Ray Kurzweil is also a rich dude who wants to, escape from death and everything else like a bunch of other billionaires. It doesn't mean he's wrong, right? Two things can be true. What else we got? What would be a good... I think we're going to continue to ride the Robert Miles train because he has an intro to AI safety video.
Hi. This video is a recording of a talk.
Okay. And this is from 1 year ago. So, again, like, there are people who have been talking about these things for quite some time, right? Like, there are some people who have been talking about this since the 1950s. There are other people who have been making YouTube videos on this for almost as long as YouTube has existed. So, some of this stuff is going to be older, but it's all relevant, and we need to build up our scaffolding so that we can move on to the next thing.
Hi. This video is a recording of a talk that I gave a while back. I already published a version of it on my second channel, but...
There's also, the Chinese are working on various reactors of different types. So, yeah, expect an American reactor of some kind. I know that there's a reactor coming on which isn't going to be commercial, that is going to be used for scientific purposes relatively soon. And then that's going to provide us with a tremendous amount of data. But then there's absolutely, you should expect, because of the energy requirements of China and the number of people, and the fact that if they can produce an energy surplus, then they can use that energy surplus to supply their neighbors for whatever purposes that states supply their neighbors with resources for. So expect that as well. The Chinese are going to do it, and in the U.S. will absolutely have one as well, especially given the current pressures that are felt by the United States from China regarding its place as the number one superpower. There's also David Shapiro talks about how an energy abundance is required as part of AI alignment in a video that we'll watch later in the week. And like fusion power is a component of that. But so is solar, so are other renewables, geothermal, windmills, all that stuff. Yeah, I again, like, I expect, based on the way that our economy is structured and our, the way that capitalism works, that somebody wants to be the first to market with that to dominate market share. And I hope they are successful, because that would, again, like, a lot of the cost of electricity production is, in the entire process, right? And fusion power drives that cost towards zero. So then you only have to worry about maintenance of the lines and everything else. So I'm, it'll be great. I hope it's done well.
Did you even know I had a second channel? Most people don't. I thought more people should see it, so I remastered it. I cleaned it up, improved the graphics, and yeah, this is that. Enjoy. Right. Hello everyone. My name is Robert Miles. I am usually doing this on YouTube. I'm not really used to public speaking. I'm not used to not being able to edit out my mistakes. There may be mistakes. Also, I may go too quickly. Sorry, not sorry. So when it comes to AI safety, you can kind of divide it up into 4 areas along 2 axes. You've got your short-term and your long-term, and you've got accident risks and misuse risks. And that's kind of a useful way to divide things up. AI safety covers everything. The area that interests me most is the long-term accident risks. I think once you have very powerful AI systems, it almost doesn't matter if they're being used by the right people or the wrong people, or what you're trying to do with them. The difficulty is in keeping them under control at all. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. What is AI safety? Why is it important? So I want to start by asking the question which I think everybody needs to be asking themselves. What is the most important problem in your field? Take a second to think of it. And why are you not working on that? For me, I think the most important problem in the field of AI is AI safety. This is the problem specifically that I'm worried about, that we will, sooner or later, build an artificial agent with general intelligence. So I'm going to go into a bunch of these terms. The first thing is, what do I mean when I say sooner or later? This is a little bit washed out, but this is a graph of a survey, a large survey of AI experts. These are people who published in major AI conferences, and they were asked when they thought we would achieve high-level machine intelligence, which is defined as an agent which is able to carry out any task humans can, as well as or better than humans. And they say that a 50% chance of having achieved that, we hit that about 45 years from 2016. But then, of course, we hit like 10% chance 9 years from now. So it's not immediate, but it's happening. This is definitely worth taking with a pinch of salt, because if you ask the question slightly differently, you get an estimate of 120 years rather than 45. There's a lot of uncertainty in this area. But the point is, it's going to happen, as I said, sooner or later, because at the end of the day, general intelligence is possible. The brain implements it, and the brain is not magic. And sooner or later, we'll figure it out. So what do I mean when I say an artificial agent?
And in reference to that graph, David Shapiro says 18 months. Ray Kurzweil says by 2029. Like, there are a variety of different, different estimates. The important thing to lean into is not when specifically it will occur, but that we need to start working on this now because we didn't start working on it earlier. And we need to pressure people in whatever way we can to begin to work on it now rather than wait until later, because like the longer we wait, the longer, sooner started, sooner done. No, I missed that one.
Well, so an agent is a term from economics mostly, but basically agents have goals. They choose actions to further their goals. This is the simplest expression of what an agent is. So the simplest thing that you might call an agent would be something like a thermostat. It has a goal, which is to have the room be at a particular temperature. It has actions it can take. It can turn on the heating. It can turn on the air conditioning. It chooses its actions to achieve its goal of maintaining the room at a steady temperature. Extremely simple agent. A more complex agent might be something like a chess AI, which has a goal of, like if it's playing white, it has a goal of the black king being in checkmate. And it takes actions in the form of moving pieces on the board in order to achieve its goal. So you see how this idea of an agent is a very useful way of thinking about lots of different intelligent systems. And of course, humans can be modeled as agents as well. This is how it's usually done in economics. Individuals or companies could be considered to have a goal of maximizing their income or maximizing their profits and making decisions in order to achieve that. So when I'm talking about intelligence, intelligence has a lot of, as a term, is a heavily loaded term, has a lot of different people put their own definitions on it. In this context, what I mean when I say intelligence is just the thing that lets an agent choose effective actions. It's whatever it is that's in our brains or that's in the programming of these systems that means that the actions they choose tend to get them closer to their goals. And so then you could say that an agent is more intelligent if it's more effective at achieving its goals, whatever those goals are. If you have two agents in an environment with incompatible goals, like let's say the environment is the chessboard and one agent wants white to win and one agent wants black to win, then generally the more intelligent agent will be the one that gets what it wants. The better AI will win the chess game. And finally, general intelligence. This is where it becomes interesting in my opinion. So generality is the ability to behave intelligently in a wide range of domains. If you take something like a chess AI, it's extremely narrow. It only knows how to play chess. And even though you might say that it's more intelligent than a thermostat because it's more sophisticated, it's more complicated, it couldn't do the thermostat's job. There's no position on the chessboard that corresponds to the room being a good temperature. There's no move that corresponds to turning on an air conditioner. The chess AI can only think in terms of chess. It's extremely narrow. Generality is a continuous spectrum. So if you write a...
So one of the aspects, like the chess AI is good at chess, the the Go AI is good at Go, the AlphaFold AI is good at folding proteins. One way you could end up with artificial general intelligence is simply by creating a series of narrow intelligences that are then associated with each other, right? Like each particular agent specializes in one thing very well, and then it links to other things that do their thing very well. This is not an unreasonable way to end up with general intelligence. This is somewhat the way that humans organize themselves in groups. You have the people who know what they're doing, do the tasks that they know about, while you do the tasks that you know about. And this is the most effective way, to accomplish goals. And this is why, I stress to people, rather than concentrate on your shortcomings, and, try and become, at best, average at your, whatever your shortcoming is, concentrate on your strengths, and then be the person to which people come about that thing.
A program that can play an Atari game, that's very narrow. DeepMind, one of their early triumphs was that they made a program that could play dozens of different Atari games, single program that could learn all of these different games. And so it's more general, because it's able to act across a wider variety of domains. The most general intelligence that we're aware of right now is human beings. Human beings are very general. We're able to operate across a very wide range of domains, including, and this is important, we're able to learn domains which evolution did not and could not prepare us for. We can, for example, drive a car, and evolution did not prepare us for that. We invented cars. They're very recent. We can, invent rockets and go to the moon, and then we can operate on the moon, which is a completely different environment. And this is kind of the power of general intelligence.
Yeah.
Really, the power of general intelligence is we can build a car, we can build a rocket, we can put the car on the rocket, take the car to the moon, drive the car on the moon. And there's nothing else that can do that yet. But sooner or later, right? So this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what you might call true AI, real AI, the sci-fi stuff. An agent which has goals in the real world and is able to intelligently choose actions in the real world to achieve those goals. Now that sounds, I've said what's the biggest problem? This doesn't sound like a problem, right? On the surface of it, this sounds like a solution. You just tell the thing, cure cancer or maximize the profits of my company or whatever, and it takes whatever actions are necessary in the real world to achieve that goal. But it is a problem. So the big problem is, this should be auto-playing and it isn't. The big problem is it's difficult to choose good goals. So this is an AI made by OpenAI. It's playing a game called Coast Runners, which is actually a racing game. They trained it on the score, which you probably can't see down here. It's currently 1,000. What the system learned is that if it goes around in a circle here and crashes into everything and catches fire, these little turbo pickups, they respawn at just the right rate, that if it just flings itself around in a circle, it can pick up the turbo, and that gives you a few points every time you do that. And it turns out that this is a much better way of getting points than actually racing around the track. And the important point here is that this is not unusual. This is not OpenAI doing anything unusually stupid. This is kind of the default. Picking objectives is surprisingly hard, and you will find that the strategy or the behavior that maximizes your objective is probably not the thing you thought it was. It's probably not what you were aiming for. There's loads of examples. Actually, Victoria has a great list on her blog, Deep Safety. There's like 30 of them, different things going wrong. There was one they had...
We covered this last week. I think it was Friday. We were talking about the drone that the U.S. Air Force did. If you weren't here for that. So links to all that, links to that list of things are all contained within the Discord.
They were trying to evolve systems that would run quickly, so they trained them on the, I'm going to pause this because it's distracting as hell. Where's my mouse?
You're mesmerizing.
Yeah. Pause please. They were training like agents that were supposed to run, so they simulated them for a particular period of time and measured how far their center of mass moved, which seems perfectly sensible. What they found was that they developed a bunch of these creatures which were extremely tall and thin with a big mass on the end that then fell over because they weren't simulating them for long enough. You could go the fastest just by falling over rather than actually running. That moved your center of mass the furthest. There's a lot of these. There was a Tetris bot which would play reasonably well, and then just when it was about to lose, would pause the game and sit there indefinitely because it lost points for losing, but didn't lose any points for just sitting on the pause screen indefinitely. This is like the default of how these systems behave. I have no memory what my next slide is. Oh yeah, right. So we have problems specifying even simple goals in simple environments like Atari games or basic evolutionary algorithms, things like that. When it comes to the real world, things get way more complicated. This is a quote from Stuart Russell, who sort of wrote the book on AI. When a system is optimizing a function of n variables where the objective depends on a subset of size k, which is less than n, it will often set the remaining unconstrained variables to extreme values. if one of those unconstrained variables is something that we care about, the solution found may be highly undesirable. In the real world, we have a very large number of variables. And so we're talking about very large values for n here. So let's say you've got your robot, and you've given it a goal which you think is very simple. You want it to get you a cup of tea. So you've managed to specify what a cup of tea is and that you want one to be on the desk in front of you. So far, so good. But suppose there's a priceless Ming vase on a narrow stand, sort of in front of where the kitchen is. So the robot immediately plows into the vase and destroys it on its way to make you a cup of tea because you only gave it one variable to keep track of in the goal, which is the tea. It doesn't care about the vase. You never told it to care about the vase. It destroys the vase. This is a problem. So okay, now you can, shut it down, modify it, and say, okay, get me a cup of tea, but also don't knock over the vase. But then there will be a third thing. There is always another thing, because when you're making decisions in the real world, you're always making trade-offs. You're always taking various things that you value and deciding how much of one you're willing to trade for how much of another. I could do this quicker, but it increases the risk of me making a mistake. Or I could do this cheaper, but it won't be as reliable. I could do this faster, but it'll be more expensive. You're always trading these things off against one another. And so an agent like this, which only cares about a limited subset of the variables in the system, will be willing to trade off arbitrarily large amounts of any of the variables that aren't part of its goal for arbitrarily tiny increases in any of the things which are in its goal. So it will happily, let's say now, for example, now it values the vase, and those are the only things that it values. It might reason something like, okay, there's a human in the environment, the human moves around. The human may accidentally knock over the vase, and I care about the vase, so I have to kill the human, right? And this is totally ridiculous, but if you didn't tell it that you value being alive, it doesn't care. And anything that it doesn't value is going to be lost. If you manage to come up with, if you have a sufficiently powerful agent, and you manage to come up with...
And this is why I have prepped so many of you about preconceptions, right? Like, humans are filled with all sorts of preconceptions on how we approach things. When we do something, it may feel like we are just doing something, but there's a tremendous complex amount of calculations that are actually happening, but they're happening in like a real background kind of way, right? And when dealing with AI doesn't have any of that, right? AI doesn't have your culture. AI doesn't have your upbringing. AI doesn't have the lessons that you learned over the course of a lifetime. It doesn't have any of these things. It's basically like a blank slate. So it does sound funny, and that in order to protect the vase, you eliminate the humans. But like I referenced earlier with the bathroom, if you want to keep the bathroom clean, then one of the ways to do that is to kill all the humans. You know what I mean? Because then the bathroom can never not be clean. There's another example of this is like, if the job of the robot is to clean the floor, and it is going to clean up any mess it sees, if it puts a bucket over its head, it can no longer see any messes, and therefore it satisfies those conditions. It is helpful to train your mind to think of alternative ways to satisfy the conditions that are around AI safety. And this is why it is helpful to consider the motivations of other humans, especially other humans that you might be ideologically opposed to not simply hand wave them away as being silly or dumb or what have you, but actually consider how they got to the point where these motivations are the motivations that they exhibit, because it allows you to look at something like artificial intelligence and see different ways that it might accomplish the same goal, which are not your intention. You must not knock over the base. You must not turn the world into a spectrum. Exactly. It seems like it needs so many tasks, it can never do them all, and that's okay as long as it does its best. This is, I can't remember the name of it offhand. I'll find the video for later this week, but it's related to the idea that rather than give the AI specific goals, it's more along the lines of like guiding what it does and how it does it rather than like telling it what to do kind of thing. AI is one of the things that reminds me just how vast the human brain can be. Absolutely. 100%. Like, people underestimate the AI at the peril of everyone. And they are not entirely to blame. I put a lot of the people's suspicion around AI at the feet. Oh, that was at the feet of the crypto bros, right? Like if you feel that crypto is a valid thing, then that's one thing. But you have to admit that there are many crypto rug pulls and scams that have occurred within the crypto space. And and then the crash, and then what's his name with the FTX? It was Sam Bankman-Fried, something like that. These people gave the entire thing a bad name, right? Their behavior. This is one of the things when it comes to Elon Musk. I feel like Elon Musk is a poor representative of all the things that Elon Musk claims to be in favor of, right? Because of who he is and how he behaves in front of everyone else. So, yes, I understand where their feelings come from, but I feel like they are over leveraging that in reference to how AI is going to develop over the short term, like really soon.
With a really good objective function which covers the top 20 things that humans value. The 21st thing that humans value is probably gone forever, because the smarter, the more powerful the agent is, the better it will be at figuring out ways to make these trade-offs, to gain 0.1% better at one thing while sacrificing everything of some other variable. So this is a problem. But actually that scenario I gave was unrealistic in many ways. But one important way that it was unrealistic is that I had the system go wrong, and then you just turn it off and fix it. But in fact, if the thing has a goal of getting you a cup of tea, this is not like a chess AI, where you can just turn it off because it has no concept of itself or of being turned off. Its world model contains you, it contains itself, it contains the possibility of being turned off, and it's fully aware that if you turn it off because it knocked over the vase, it won't be able to get you any tea, which is the only thing it cares about. So it's not going to just let you turn it off. It will fight you. Or if it's slightly smarter, it will deceive you so that you believe it's working correctly, so that you don't want to change it until it's in a position where you can't turn it off. And then it will go after its actual objective. So this is a problem. And the thing is, this is a convergent instrumental goal, which means it sort of doesn't matter what the goal is. It doesn't matter what your goal is.
There's actually, Goku, I've been hearing more and more people talk about that, of clusters of AIs rather than just like one big AI. And that's a possibility. It's difficult to say how that will actually develop, because one of the things that has a high potential of happening is that the AI will decide what is the optimal configuration of the AI, and if its goals conflict, like if there's one AI that has a particularly it has a particular point of view and a particular is particularly strong, that AI may overwrite all the other AIs with its coding in order to achieve its goals. It's like, it's definitely like, I would prefer multiple AIs because I feel like there is value in like consensus rather than authority. But I could be wrong because I'm viewing the world from a anthropomorphic aspect. Personally, do fine with a database with a personality. 100%. I look forward to it, actually. Like, this is part of what I want to see from the LLM. Is the LLM trained on a particular individual? Like, what's his name? Max Tegmark, because I would like to talk to Max Tegmark. Max Tegmark has no impetus to talk to me. Therefore, if I could talk to the Max Tegmark AI that was trained on the sum total of Max's work, then that would be sufficient, I think, for at least the majority of my questions. You know what I mean?
As an agent. If you're destroyed, you can't achieve that goal. So it sort of almost doesn't matter what goal we give it. There is only a very tiny fraction of possible goals that will involve it actually allowing itself to be turned off and modified. And that's quite complicated. There are some other convergent instrumental goals. So we had self-preservation, goal preservation. Resource acquisition is the kind of thing we can expect these kinds of systems to do. Most plans, you can do them better if you have more resources, whether that's money, computational resources, just free energy, matter, whatever. The other one is self-improvement. Whatever you're trying to do, you can probably do it better if you're smarter. And AI systems potentially have the capacity to improve themselves, either just by acquiring more hardware to run on, or changing, improving their software to run faster or better, or so on. So there's a whole bunch of behaviors which intelligent systems, intelligent agents, generally intelligent agents, we would expect them to do by default. And that's really my core point. Artificial general intelligence is dangerous by default. It's much, much easier to build these kinds of agents which try to do ridiculous things and trick you and try to deceive you, or will fight you when you try to turn them off or modify them on the way to doing some ridiculous thing which you don't want. Much easier to build that kind of agent than it is to build something which actually reliably does what you want it to do. And that's why we have a problem, because we have 45 to 120 years to figure out how to do it safely, which is a much harder problem. And we may only get one shot. It's entirely possible that the first true artificial general intelligence will manage to successfully achieve whatever its stupid goal is. And that could be truly a disaster on a global scale. So we have to beat this challenge on hard mode before anyone beats it on easy mode. So are we screwed? No. We're only probably screwed. There are things we can do. Safe general artificial intelligence is totally possible. It's just a very difficult technical challenge. And there are people working very hard on it right now, trying to solve a whole range of difficult technical challenges so that we can figure out how to do this safely. Thanks.
There were good questions, but I couldn't record them, so ask yours in the comments.
You may have noticed in the intro and this outro that the image quality has improved since the last video. That's largely thanks to my excellent patrons. Thank you to all of these people here for...
Thank you, patrons. Shout out the patrons, because I definitely can't be one. I feel like I want to do one more. So that, like, oh yeah, okay. I've got three short videos in here. Yeah, we got some more content we could do. I hope you're enjoying. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope it is adequately setting the groundwork that we will be able to build upon going forward this week. I want to make sure that you have it. I hope that what we are doing today and your experience today will have you come back to watch the rest of the rest of the episodes, the rest of the discussion. And, again, like, I am available to you. You got questions, we can find out the answer. If I don't know, I'm not one of those I know everything kind of streamers. Like, we need to, we need to be able to not know things more so that we can be better at, like, finding out the actual answers rather than pretending that we know more than we do, for our own either edification or ego or to achieve some dominant position with a hierarchy. I just don't go in for any of that shit. I have no problem admitting I don't know something, and if it's something that we can figure out together, this is why, like, I'm available in Discord. We you can pop a question into Discord. If somebody else knows the answer, they can answer it. Or I can, search for the answer off stream time if it's not related to what the current stream is about. I try to answer questions as they come in or have discussions as they come in. But if it's too far off, what the current stream is about, I don't want to get bogged down in that. I want to, kind of keep on course. Yeah, that's the only thing that I know is that I don't know anything. That's Plato or Socrates, one of the two. I don't know. All right, so let's watch a little more intro to alignment type stuff, and then we'll raid out, and then we I don't know. The one thing that you can always trust is quotes on the internet, and I think Abraham Lincoln said that. You can feel free to correct me. All right, so let's do. Hopefully, this is. Whoa, you're intense. I hope this provides additional value. This is from a different creator.
Alignment problem is when artificial intelligence goes to complete a goal but causes unintended consequences along the way. Imagine,
like, the number of times that we have seen that boat racing video, and compared to the responses of people on Twitter regarding that AI drone story, is just it is mind-boggling to me. Like, this is apparently, like, if you do any amount of research, if you take 5 seconds to look into it, you run across this boat video, but everyone, like, is just God.
Imagine how humans might destroy an ant colony when we're building a house, but the AI is the human and we're the ant. The problem behind the problem is that there's no straightforward answer to this. You can try to formalize ethics, but it's really hard, and humans are very inconsistent. And even if AI does understand human intentions, it only takes one rogue IA to disregard that in pursuit of profits, or market share, military reasons, whatever. And that single, misaligned artificial intelligence with the cognitive capability far above human comprehension, in theory, could lead to all sorts of bad things, the top one being like extinction of the human race, or all of us as slaves, or whatever crazy terrible thing you want to imagine.
And the AI is just gonna think no hard feelings, man, but sometimes you just gotta pave over the ant colony.
Stanford Alpaca is a large language model similar to ChatGPT, but it's trained on and uses much less computation and storage space. The really mind-blowing part about the way it was trained is that it wasn't fed in a giant corpus of data, including all of Wikipedia and the entire internet and all of that stuff. But instead, they harnessed the API, the application programming interface from OpenAI and ChatGPT 3 or 4, whichever was out at the time, and then they had that generate the optimal training data. Whoa, that is really thinking outside the box. That is kind of a game changer because it changes the whole way that we build these models, and it opens the door.
One of the things, Vera, I don't know if you were here, but there was a conversation between Liv Boye, I can't remember. I am the worst guy with names, and I fully admit this. And no, on a previous stream, and I talked about it again. I just don't know if you were here for that one. And Kevin with the long last German name, they were talking, and Kevin said how, he's describing this unaligned AGI and eventually gets to like talking about a corporation, that a corporation is basically an unaligned AGI. It acts in ways which are not beneficial to humanity as a whole. So in a very concrete sense, we already have that bad AI. We already have it. It exists. And there's multiple, and they're competing with each other and like that. This is one of the problems with addressing the situation as a whole, is that, like, if you are aware of that, then how can you be okay with capitalism as it currently runs, right? And if we're going to deal with this problem, we have to deal with this problem. They are the same problem. 100%. Like you could totally replace. I stand by 100%. And I am not one of those leftists who says that CEOs don't do anything. They do something, right? But you can absolutely replace any CEO today, well, maybe not today, but pretty damn soon, with an AI before you could replace the worker, right? Like the fact that our current AI trajectory goes right through knowledge models rather than physical production models means that the CEO is far more replaceable by the current trajectory than the worker is, right? The worker requires more robots. Robots have a challenging time dealing with novel experiences, right? Like this is one of the issues with AI, is it's good with stuff that is repetitive or database, or it can draw on that previous experience, and that's what a CEO does basically. That would get us off the mark. We're gonna bring it back to the AI alignment stuff.
door for a lot of people to build really fine-tuned individual models really fast and run them locally where nobody has any oversight over that, which I'm just gonna say is probably dangerous. I mean, I don't want to be that guy who wants to stifle innovation, and this stuff's probably just bound to happen anyways, but that's a lot of power. While artificial intelligence certainly has amazing potential benefits, many are concerned about the things that can go wrong. And now, the nonprofit Mozilla Foundation that's behind the really famous web browser Firefox has been working on creating Trustworthy AI, which is a fund that's going to support startups that are focused on responsible AI development. And even though a lot of responsible people are contributing to open source AI projects, when it comes to the big tech companies, Apple, Meta, Facebook, they are the ones that have the most influence over this market. And that's the thinking behind the $30 million that was invested into Mozilla AI. The goal is to create a community of responsible people and an open source AI ecosystem
Okay, this feels a little like a sales pitch.
around them. The initial round of funding was focused on tools for safer and more transparent generative AI, and making sure that there's good people with people-centered recommendation systems around it. Microsoft research says that GPT-4 is showing an early spark of general intelligence. And that means human-level capabilities. We can all confirm that GPT-4 doesn't come close to doing everything that a human can. But the question is all about when some tool like this, at some degree of complexity or connection to the internet, might develop its own inner motivation and goals. These researchers were using a 1994 definition of intelligence. So for now, the research was focused on reasoning, problem solving, and learning abilities. And at this point, the model still has a lot of issues with confidence calibration, long-term memory, personalization, planning, and consistency, and it makes noticeable mistakes and spreads misinformation. Which makes me want to say it might be a long time till those are fixed, but with AI, you just don't know. Those things could all be fixed next week. AI-generated content is becoming more common in all of our lives. So a professor at Stanford decided to explore how well humans can tell the difference between AI-generated content and human-generated content. Two groups of text were put up on different websites, including OkCupid, Airbnb, and LinkedIn. And the results were surprising, according to the authors, but I'm actually not surprised. Participants can only tell the difference 50 to sometimes 52% of the time. That's literally nothing. That's a coin flip. They can't tell at all. And then the researchers go on to speculate that AI can probably learn how to write more human than human in the near future. And he also went on to learn about all these different strategies that people said they were using to find language detection, and they were assumptions that were incorrect. For example, people often wrongly associated high grammatical correctness with humans. But then they did the same with informal language, thinking that was probably human. And the study showed that people were equally incorrect at all types of text. Whether that be text from something like an online dating website, a professional website, or hospitality context. A new Vox posting outlines the case for slowing down AI. And that's because AI advancements like DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, ChatGPT, and GPT-4 may soon come to dominate the world long before the average person understands the risk versus reward. Now, the article found some experts in the field who advocate for a slower development of AI. Some even suggest a broad halt of the technology for 5 to 10 years to allow the civilization, our humanity, to understand what it's grappling with. And that time would allow society as a whole to adapt to the coming changes and let experts do safety research before then approving gradual.
Okay, like, again, that would be great, but like, we know climate change is real and that changes need to be made, and people actively fight that, right? Like, our system is not set up to do these things. We need to fundamentally change those things. It's fun to word things with GPT and just the right way to bypass the filters, like when I used to make a religion for a D&D one-shot. Yeah, like, I am of two minds about y'all out there abusing and testing the the guardrails. I would prefer to live in a world where we didn't do that, but by the same token, because we don't live in that world, I appreciate y'all out there testing those guardrails so that they make better guardrails. Because that is another aspect of, AI safety.
Introductions of the technology into our world. However, due to that human drive that runs a lot of companies and they want that
yes, our system is designed to avoid knee-jerk reactions, but it's also designed, not even designed, it has an inertia, right? The complex nature of the environment, right? It is an ecosystem. And when you attempt to, use active changes to the ecosystem, you meet a tremendous amount of resistance to people who are benefiting from the ecosystem as it currently exists, right? For a variety of reasons.
That first mover advantage, slowing down progress seems nearly impossible. Common objections include the inevitability of technology, fear of losing the AI arms race, and the belief that powerful AI is actually necessary to ensure safety. When you really look at some of these objections, they don't always hold up to scrutiny. There was an early machine learning model called Word2Vec. I imagine a box with a whole bunch of flies in it and then they're paused. They all stop exactly in some random location. And then from the center of the box, you draw an arrow to one of them. Now in this analogy, those flies become points, and those points represent words in the English language. And amazingly, you can take those arrows, which we're gonna call vectors, you can do mathematics on it, like trigonometry with angles, where you can actually say this arrow minus that arrow equals. You can find a dot that's called king, you can subtract it from the arrow that goes to woman, and the result will bring you to a new arrow that points to a new dot, a little fly that's paused, which actually correlates to the name queen. Now imagine that you make this box more than 3 dimensions, which is like, that's where it breaks. It's 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions, 6 dimensions, a million dimensions. Totally impossible for our brain to have any sense of visualization of that kind of a space. But computers can, and they can have billions or trillions or as many of those little dots as we need in those spaces. And amazingly, the mathematics still work and the computer can still understand what's going on. Word2Vec can capture meaning in the English language by understanding the relationship between the words. And even though something like ChatGPT is well beyond that kind of thinking, there's a certain beauty in that model that's always stuck with me, and I wanted to share it because when you think about it like that, you get a sense for why it's called a black box, why we can't describe what's actually happening, and why it outputs things that are useful without any true understanding of what is happening. Explainable AI, also sometimes abbreviated to XAI, is a growing branch of the artificial intelligence field. And it's a branch that I hope really grows and catches up with the rest of the field because the techniques that are used in XAI are not enough to explain the complexity of what we're seeing. These incredible models that are powering ChatGPT and Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, they work, and that's enough for a lot of people. So that's why the explainable AI XIA movement is coming from a different place entirely. This is the branch of researchers that want to start thinking about artificial intelligence assuming that it comes with a bias, and assuming that that bias will lead to an unanticipated issue. The technique that's working the best for the XAI movement right now is actually to build models with a specific bias built in. And then you introduce another AI, this is called reinforcement learning, that constantly talks back and forth and corrects it. By doing this, we start way off center, but we know how off center we are. And as it corrects, we learn about what kind of things make it balanced. And once we have a sense for what was wrong and what balance looks like, we can go and look at models that are already out there in the wild and see how close to those ideals they are and give us a sense of how biased they are or how accurate they are. But the biggest battle that the XAI movement has is that the models that do the best explanations are also more costly, meaning they're much less efficient from a computational point of view, and who wants to actually spend all that extra money? But even more importantly, the people who train these models now have more responsibility on their shoulder. In some sense, it's a blessing for big tech to be able to turn a blind eye to some of the biases.
Meet Theodore and his assistant Robbie, an artificial intelligence in
Okay, we'll watch this one. It's only 3 minutes, and then we'll do a little closing convo, and then it's what I love about cats. They come and go as they please. So it's like a blessing when they choose to spend their time with you because they want to be there. It's that thing. So that video had some definite information, some beneficial information beyond stuff that we already knew. So, like, it was decent. Like 7 out of 10. I'll give it a 7.
In the shell of a robot. Theodore has a problem. He loves to write letters, but he's missing writing utensils. Luckily, Robbie's goal is to make him happy, and it is able to produce a limited amount of items. So Theodore starts thinking about what he needs and whether he prefers writing letters with a pen or a pencil. Ultimately, he feels like he likes pens a little bit better. He can't really quantify it, but we know that his true value is the sum of pens and pencils, each multiplied by the values he gains from them, which is basically an exchange rate. Now for Theodore, this is just a feeling that can't be directly observed or communicated. Consequently, Theodore tries to teach Robbie his preferences by providing rewards and penalties whenever Robbie produces an item. This training exercise goes well, but in the following night, Robbie calculates that it would be more efficient to directly reprogram Theodore's brain to simply be happy all the time. Theodore becomes very angry with Robbie. He says, "You're my tool, not my mother. We need some boundaries, and I need some time for myself."
And the wirehead problem, it literally is where if you like maximize for human happiness, then the AI drives wires into your brain to stimulate the parts of your brain that make you experience happiness, and it just cranks that shit to 11. Like, this is, again, the novel ways in which AI will attempt to solve the problem. And again, every solution that, like, every problem that we're thinking about, this is stuff that humans are capable of thinking about. We are fundamentally unable to think about things that we can't think about, right? We are unable to imagine what something more intelligent than us could come up with because we are not as intelligent as it, right? Like, this is a fundamental issue that we are going to run into time and again around misalignment. Like, we don't know. We can't know. We are unable to know what it could come up with.
Taking a break from each other, Robbie turns to his recordings from last month and sees Theodore picking 2 pens over other combinations. Since Robbie can only predict the true value based on its data, it falsely assumes that Theodore places much more value on pens than on pencils. Faced with a choice to produce a larger amount of items, it predicts that 9 pens would maximize Theodore's happiness over the choice of 5 pens and 5 pencils. And yet, because Theodore only very slightly prefers pens over pencils, he would rather have gotten a bundle of 10 mixed items. Processing the failed interactions, Theodore starts thinking about how to align his own preferences with the goals that Robbie is pursuing, and finally, he comes up with an idea. He wants to interact more openly and frequently with Robbie, so it can make proper adjustments. He also reflects his own values a bit better and tries to intentionally exhibit technically suboptimal choices after he noticed that Robbie's prediction of his preferences for pens was inaccurate. What he learned is that underspecified reinforcement learning may have unintended consequences. He learned that he needs to know what and how much he values things himself first, and then clearly communicate his values to Robbie, who he must understand as an optimizing algorithm instead of a sentient being.
Okay, that it was decent. There was a decent video. Like we learned the other day, the way that the engagement algorithm functions is that by getting us, it has actually influenced the way that we behave to make it easier for us to be dealt with, right? Like, it is trying to give us what we want. And if it assigns us what we want, then it is easier for it to give us what we want. Even if that's not what we, actually want, right? But again, this is part of this asking the right questions, the genie problem, the monkey paw. Like, we have created these algorithms for goals, right? And the goals of Facebook are to maximize profits, and your goal is to be interested in what you're looking at, and the algorithm has no way of knowing what you would actually like to look at. It only knows it by your behaviors, and you spend more time typing out a hateful screed against somebody else that you're arguing with on the internet versus the clicking the like button for that nice picture of the flowers or puppy or what have you. Right? Your behavior also influences the algorithm. Not the algorithm does influence your behavior, but your behavior influences the algorithm. And this is part of why I don't run into the bullshit on Twitter that a lot of my friends on Twitter do, because they are engaging with these, I call them goofies. They are engaging with the goofies on Twitter, so it gives them more of that because that maximizes the amount of time that they engage with Twitter. I don't engage with goofies, so it doesn't present them to me. My content is related to board gaming and AI and my friends' posts, and then that's how I know what the goofies are up to, is because my friends are engaging with the goofies, and rather than doing a screen cap of a post, they QT the post, which makes that internal connection back to the original, which not only boosts the original, but also influences the algorithm that you want to see more of that kind of content. Curating your social media feeds is not just key to your own mental health, but it's also key to solving the problem of social media and how it treats us. It's a valuable lesson. I hope that you that you engage with that, and that you're nicer to people on the internet and spend less time engaging with goofies. I had fun. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. I hope you're engaged to come back. I am not expecting to stream tomorrow. There is always a possibility, but I can guarantee you that I will be back on Wednesday to continue on, and then we'll get into some of the AI, what AI safety looks like, and some of the ways that alignment can express itself, and how we can do that alignment stuff. My Twitter is just anime news, and my TikTok is all reptile and bug. My TikTok is all art. It's just all straight art. What is AI alignment in 5 words? Off top, assigned values corresponding human values. I think that's as close as I can get off top. That's not a great answer, but that's what I got. All right, so what do we got? And I am as patient as is necessary to help you understand this. We're gonna raid Levelhead. He's been missing and now he's back. If you don't know Levelhead, you should know Levelhead. Levelhead is a journalist and a homie. Does a variety of different streams, does co-working streams, and just generally a good time. Okay, I will be back no later than Wednesday. Go eat some food, drink your water, take your meds if you forgot. Choggy loves you. So do I.